I should probably come along and that's what you know.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think all here. My oldest is really interested in when I go sometime.
Yeah.
So they'll ask me questions. Why'd you say that? You said it's different. There's like 5 variations to my story. It's like, what are the points I'm going to emphasize? And he's like fully fact checked it right now. He's like, what the heck did you said? You said this last time. You said this time.
Well, I hope I get a chance to meet the woman.
Well, you want me to?
You have to come up here. I don't want to get you out of this. Not that I'm worried about it, but
I guess this is
pretty soon. Yeah, have a seat. Just set up a chair. Get comfortable. The green room is back there. It's locked though, but there is a green room.
Absolutely, we're gonna have a good time here.
That's part of it. That's part of it.
That's part of it, yeah.
In the fall, we have what's called a Big Ideas show. Where we kind of find down to like 5 companies, startups, and then we make their pitches here, where we have a series of judges, music presidents, girls programs, from different colleges. There's a number of sponsors, and there's some nice prize money for first, second, third. The first place winner gets a berth to the Minnesota Cup Entrepreneurship series, which is one of those series. But I'm thinking of revisioning it. It's kind of gotten stale, and everybody kind of does it. I'm trying to think, how do we repurpose it?
That's just me. Have you been? Thank you for reminding me of that. Oh, nice. That's great. Great lunch.
Last call up there, if we can maybe get all aboard who's going aboard. Good afternoon and welcome to those here and those streaming in to the 2025 Richard Schmitz Food Entrepreneurship Lecture Series. My name is Gary Leslie, Interim Executive Director of the Maverick Innovation Gateway. And I have no doubt you will find today's program both enjoyable and enlightening. After all, who cannot benefit in some way from an intelligent discussion about food, leadership, personal growth, and success? And we have the perfect guest to do that here today. I'd like to especially recognize in attendance today University President Inch and his wife. Good afternoon. Dean Bach. Richard Schmitz is with us, and with wife Mary watching online, I hope. Son-in-law Dave Olson and niece Megan, good afternoon. Sarah Herr and family, welcome, gang. And Bart Zager from Rembrandt Foods, thanks for coming, Bart. Founded in 1999, the Richard and Mary Schmitz Endowment Fund has generously supported food entrepreneurship initiatives here at Minnesota State University, Mankato. Richard, affectionately known as Dick, is a 1964 graduate from Mankato State College with an accounting degree from the College of Business. In 1973, he purchased his first retail food store in Olivia, Minnesota, followed by one in Hudson, Wisconsin. He would go on to own multiple stores in the Duluth area as well as Wisconsin. In 2003, he sold his stores and retired from the grocery business. Dick has supported Minnesota State University Mankato in many roles, including serving as the president of the foundation board. He is also the winner of the 2002 Harold J. Fitterer Service Award as a distinguished alumni. Dick, we thank you for your dedication to our university and for that constant reminder of how important food entrepreneurship are to our society. Although Mary was unable to attend today, I'd like to ask Dick to stand as we all thank him for the generosity that has made this event possible. This lecture series, in particular, has provided the College of Business and the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship with opportunities to engage students, alumni, and industry partners in the expanding agribusiness sector. Through this format, the series also educates the community on the evolving needs across the agricultural spectrum. So with our focus on high-impact teaching, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our Dean of the College of Business, Dr. Sung Bach. Dr. Bach?
Thank you, Gary. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending today's conversation featuring Mr. Andrew Herr, CEO of Rembrandt Foods. I'm Sung Bach, Dean of the College of Business. Once again, thank you for joining us today. This special event is hosted by the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship of the College of Business at the Minnesota State University, Mankato. Our university is deeply committed to real-world experience and hands-on learning. Today, we proudly advance that mission by welcoming Mr. Herr for what promised to be an insightful and engaging conversation. As like Gary summarized, this marks the 11th lecture in this series, which began formally in 2011. We've held one nearly every year since then, except a few years due to logistical challenges, like pandemic we had it. It is an ongoing tradition that brings business leaders and bold thinkers to campus, connecting our student and community with real-world insight and inspiration. As an AACSB accredited business school, the College of Business is known for its innovative and high-impact programs. Guided by our motto, big ideas, real-world thinking, we offer transformative experience like the United Prairie Bank Integrated Business Experience, Maverick Investment Fund, Richard Schmitz Food Entrepreneurship Lecture Series like today, and Hanzi Ag Innovators Leadership Program, and Stengler Internship Program. We also excited to highlight two new and growing area of impact within the College of Business. The Maverick Innovation Gateway, powered by NEDAC, the home of our high impact programs. It is a dynamic space that fosters an innovation mindset in the community. Open to all students and the community partners, it serves as a collaborative hub for creativity and entrepreneurship. Where is it? It was formerly known as the Maverick Bookstore. We renovate and transform it into a beautiful space. You can find it at the corner of University Square. If you haven't been there, you have to check it out. Additionally, our newly established Charles Schwab Maverick Center for Financial Success expand our reach by promoting financial literacy and well-being among students and the broader community. This center is a vital step forward in making real-world financial education accessible and impactful, both in and out of the classroom. Our college remains committed to academic excellence, practical application, and community engagement. Today's event with Mr. Herr is another meaningful example of how we bring that mission to life. I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to Andrew, the Rembrandt team, and our dedicated College of Business faculty and staff who made today's event possible. Thank you all for being here today, and I'd like to Gary back to the podium.
Thank you, Dean Bach. There's no question, Dean Bach, you have elevated the energy levels here in the College of Business and across the campus. And with our new gateway powered by NEDAC, the sky isn't the limit. So thank you for that opportunity for all of us. I'm now pleased to ask Dr. Aaron Budge, Interim Executive Director of the School of Applied Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources. Did I get it all for the first time? That's all right. To say a few words, and I thank you in advance, Mr. Budge, Dr. Budge, for adding perspective to our program from your school standpoint, and followed by what will be your introduction of our guest speaker, Andrew Herr. Dr. Budge.
Thank you, Gary. I appreciate this opportunity. So yes, kind of a mouthful, but the School of Applied Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources. I would do a quick show of hands if I was in a classroom. I guess I can still do that. How many knew that we have a School of Applied Agriculture on campus? Lots of hands in the front row. That's a great sign. Not as many in the back. So for the students here, microphone really having a rough time. For the students here, we do indeed have a School of Applied Agriculture, Food, and Natural Resources that is basically a bigger umbrella to all of the ag-related programming on campus. So the agricultural, food, natural resource programs will work across the campus boundaries to be a part of that. So the agribusiness and food innovation within the College of Business clearly is a part of this School of Applied Agriculture, along with the agricultural science program, the agronomy program, and some of the other programs that have definite ties to the ag, food, natural resource industries. Many of those faculty members across the campus, I think we have literally folks from every academic college that are part of this school, and we appreciate that opportunity to have cross-pollination in an agricultural sense, right? To be able to see that happening. So if you're not familiar with what the school is all about, some of the activities that we're involved with, please reach out. Happy to share some of that information with you. The opportunity is there. President Inch and Provost Hood were both very insistent that our agricultural programming has not been as visible as it should be. So part of the initiation of this school is to make it visible to the greater community, to the students within our community, and to prospective students in our community as well. So we appreciate this opportunity, look forward to getting to know you better, and to making this really fly high. So looking forward to that. If you have any questions, please reach out, let us know. Part 2 of my assignment is to introduce Andrew to the group. So first, a little bit on Rembrandt Foods. Rembrandt Foods is a leading egg company focused on food ingredients and food service applications. High-path avian influenza has been particularly challenging for the egg industry. Andrew and the Rembrandt Foods management team are navigating this challenge and maintaining the focus on bringing opportunity and security to all stakeholders. The journey has led the company to make significant investments in new products, new markets, and new customer relationships. Andrew. Thank you. Save. Andrew first entered the ag industry as an intern with Rembrandt Enterprises Incorporated, or REI, in 2005, and started their pet care division in 2007. He went on to become the pet food division general manager at REI. He also worked as president of Isonova Technologies, CEO of International Dehydrated Foods Incorporated, and as president of GAT Enterprises, which is where I think we first crossed paths about 6 or 7 years ago, prior to joining Rembrandt Foods in 2023. As far as his education goes, he earned a bachelor's degree in animal science with a minor in agricultural business from Penn State University, a master's degree in agricultural economics from Purdue University, and rounding out his tour of the Big Ten, a master's in business administration from Indiana University. Andrew currently resides in Mankato, Minnesota, with his wife Sarah and 3 children here in the front. Outside of his office, interests include investing, sports, traveling, and spending time with his family. With that, please welcome Andrew Herr.
Thank you, Aaron. Really appreciate it. Well, good. Well, I want to first thank Gary for a wonderful job hosting me today. Oh, am I good? Not move? I'm good now. All right, there we go. So I want to thank Gary and all of the set team today. I just had a wonderful time, traveling around the campus with them, getting to talk. What a wonderful student body that's here. It's always invigorating to me when I get to come on campuses and get to talk to students that are gonna go out and change and remind me of the shoes that I was in 20 years ago and how I made decisions and how those decisions have multiplied and in some cases subtracted, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I want to thank Dr. Inch for hosting today too. Really had a great conversation at lunch, and then Dick, Wright for sponsoring it, and David for coming here too. So just had a wonderful day getting to talk and connect with people, and that's been a big part of my career, has been bridging, getting connected with relationships, pouring into those relationships. And then making sure that I'm contributing back out of those relationships. But so what I wanted to start with today, just kind of talking a little bit about who I am. We'll start there. Then I'll tell you the story about how I went from an intern to starting a business to being CEO. I'll tell that. Then we're going to talk about 3 main principles. We're going to talk about how decisions have descendants. We're going to talk about a concept called sunbirding, where you take things from other industries and you apply them into your industry. And then we're going to talk about the OODA loop, which is observe, orient, decide, and act. And these 3 things have been the cornerstone of how I've been able to operate as an entrepreneur over a 20-year breadth period of time, and be able to build teams and have enjoy some successes, a lot of failures along the way too, but really be able to kind of anchor back in those kind of three guiding principles from that standpoint. So first, starting off talking about me, I grew up in Pennsylvania. I grew up on a Mennonite farm. I was the youngest, which means that you better find your own way. That's what that means, because older brother has rank. And I'm happy to state that my older brother is there today. He lives right next to my parents. He lives on the farmstead, runs a very successful excavating business, and is, has taken over the farm and, is honoring my dad's legacy and his father's legacy before him. So, that worked. But within that, my parents gave me every opportunity to go out and explore who I was, knowing that, the farm wasn't big enough, knowing that, there needed to be an expansion side. They gave me the freedom to operate. And they instilled one principle in me in going out in freedom to operate. Make sure that the decisions you're making today are going to support where you want to get to in the future. Make sure that, you're also being fiscally responsible. My dad worked away from home. My mom worked away from home to make sure that we were a fiscally responsible family, didn't rely on the farm as the sole source of income. And our days consisted of 5:30. My dad would get home from work. We were expected to have our homework done. By 6 o'clock, we were supposed to be fed and ready to go to the farm. We would be at the farm from 6 until 9. And that's where I learned how to be an entrepreneur. My dad taught me a lesson every night at the farm. Not always ones that I wanted to learn, not always ones that I, didn't challenge. I thought there were smarter ways to work, not harder ways to work. And the fact of life is, when you are number 3 and there are 2 tractors, you are the grunt labor. So my jobs were picking rocks, my jobs were throwing the bales, my jobs were going back and saying, whoa, my job was go forward, right? I never really got to be a leader in that. I was always a contributor. But that led me to a path of saying, well, if I'm going to be a contributor, and how can I most effectively be a contributor, I want to make sure that that I present myself as opportunities where I can be a leader. And FFA gave me that chance. In high school, I spent a lot of time in FFA. I realized that there were not a lot of kids that were going to say that their scholastic contribution was going to be being a poultry judge, and that there were scholarship dollars available for people that were good at poultry judging. So the set team heard me talk about supply and demand is undefeated. There were not a lot of supply of kids that were going to go into poultry judging. There was a demand out there for scholarship dollars that were there, and by gosh, I was going to go win one of those scholarships. So I did. I won a competition, so about a third of my college was paid for by being good at judging poultry. So check the box. My parents couldn't give me money, but they gave me land and opportunity. So on that land and opportunity, I raised pumpkins. We had never raised pumpkins before. I didn't know the first thing about raising pumpkins, but one summer, it did not rain. We lived next to a river, and I was able to water my pumpkins. Everybody wants a pumpkin that they can carve a jack-o'-lantern face into. Cha-ching. I made a lot of money selling pumpkins. 1/3 of my college paid for. Then it's the last third. So the last third, I had this poultry background. I'm going to school. I know I'm going to go for animal science. And I get to school. There's 400 kids. And the dairy line is out to go to be with the dairy people is out the door. To go be with the beef people is out the door. Pig people was pretty long. Chicken people was significantly shorter. And then I looked at this little line that said egg layers, and there was nobody in it. And I went over and asked them, I said, why isn't anybody here? And they're like, well, the industry's moving away, it's going to the Midwest. And I was like, well, that sounds like a problem to solve or something you understand. I was like, well, what's your scholarship dollar situation? Well, we have a lot of money, because the industry used to be really prevalent here, but now it's not, and we don't have a lot of kids. And I was like, good, supply demand, I'll go in that line. So that is how I picked my major, my emphasis, and how I ended up in the egg industry. From there, I met some people that were in the egg industry that gave me those scholarship dollars, and I asked them, I was like, well, what's a problem at a scholarship dinner? I was like, what's a problem I could help you solve? And they're like, well, it'd be great if we really understood why and the production costs of everything that's happening out in Iowa so that we knew how to compete. We have the market, but they seem to have cost of production advantage to us. And I said, okay, well, I'm young. I have no attachments for the summer. I'll go get an internship out in that geography where you would like to understand more. I'll go be an intern out there. So they sponsored me. I went to the biggest conference for the poultry industry that fall, or that winter. I took money. I went and I bought a suit before I went. I printed up a bunch of resumes. I printed up a bunch of business cards. I made a very official looking name tag, and I walked into the hospitality dinners as if I was supposed to be there. And in those hospitality dinners, Andrew Herr was selling Andrew Herr about going to the Midwest and being an intern for the summer. And first person, no. Second person, no, we don't do that. Third person, I'm not the one to talk to. You should talk to XYZ. Introduces me to XYZ. He and I talk for a little bit. He says, we don't do internships. You get everything out of it. We get nothing out of it. We're not going to do that. But I felt like at least he talked to me, right, for a little bit. And I asked him for his card. He gave me his card. And I went out that night. I left right after that. I went back to my hotel room. And I wrote him a proposal and emailed it to him and said, Mr. Don Cohen, we talked. Here's my internship proposal. Here's what you will get out of it. Here's what I will get out of it. And I think this is a great opportunity for you. He proceeds to call me the next morning at 7 a.m. and say, are you for real? And I said, I'm not sure, but I sure hope so. And he said, okay, well, if you want it that bad, you will pay for yourself to come out here over spring break, and you will interview with 5 people. If those 5 people approve you and say that you're going to be a good intern, we will hire you. And I said, okay. I'm not 21 at this point in time, so I can't rent a car. So I was like, can you at least have somebody pick me up at the airport? He said, sure, we'll have somebody pick you up at the airport, but that's it. You got to figure it out the rest of the way. So I do. I get there. I get there in the summer. I get there spring break, March, this time of year. Fly from Penn State to Iowa, and I go there, and he lines it up where I'm going to interview with these people. And my first question, right, is, do you have a scorecard? If you had a scorecard, what would you want on that scorecard? What could help you be a better manager? How could I help you understand your business better? I was asking them questions in the interview process versus letting them ask me questions. And I got that through with everybody, and I was getting their buy-in about how I could help them be a better manager when they go to their weekly meetings. And what I was going to get out of it is I was hoping they would teach me how to be a good manager and how to lead people and those types of things. So Don puts me in a room, goes in, collects up the 5 people, I think fully expecting to hear, we're not going to hire this kid and send him back to Pennsylvania. And he comes walking in and he says, I can't believe you did it. I can't believe you did it. They all want us to hire you. And he said, what did you say? And I said, I was just honest with them. I'm going to learn your business from numbers, and I'm going to help you be able to explain your numbers better by using a skill that I have, and I hope you'll impart a skill that you have on me, and we'll have a great relationship that's mutually beneficial. And that stuck, and that worked, and I came out and I was an intern for Rembrandt for 2 summers doing that. During my second summer, prior to my second summer coming out, I had written a paper about how my mom, who was a baby boomer, had her youngest son going off to college, was going to be an empty nester, and the most logical place that she was going to impart her love was going to be on a dog. But it wasn't going to be on a dog that was 100 pounds. It wasn't going to be on a dog that was fed Old Roy. It was going to be on a dog that weighed 20 pounds, that sat in her lap and showed her endless love and affection and lived inside the house, not outside the house. I wrote that paper right before I went back for my second internship. I show up on my first day for my second internship. They say the breaking plant manager, because we break all the eggs for the food ingredient side, they say the breaking plant manager has quit. we're throwing out your second-year internship plan. You are going to manage 25 people on a day-to-day basis and have the full P&L responsibility of running the breaking plant. And I said, challenge accepted. I diagnosed that P&L completely and realized we were paying money to get rid of, if you break an egg, and everybody go home and do this, break an egg, majority of it falls out. There's a little swoop that hangs up on the inside. We were paying to dispose of that little swoop of good quality egg that had no defects, was a great protein source, and a great binding agent. And three things met at that moment in time. I had seen a depulping system at an orange juice factory that I had toured prior that year. I had written a paper about pet food and how my mom was going to want to feed a 20-pound dog less food, have less defecation, no shedding, and the breath was going to be different. She was going to be willing to spend $3 to $5 a day on that dog, and I saw this beautiful protein source, and those three things came together all at once in my mind. And I started writing, every night I started writing a business plan associated with how I was going to take that little swoop millions of times a day and take that to the pet food industry, and that was going to revolutionize the way that we thought about binding pet food products together and delivering a great, efficient protein source. But I was asked earlier today, they're like, well, how'd you go from that business plan to actually getting in front of Glenn Taylor and asking him for $1 million? And the fact of life is I didn't. I wrote the plan, I exited at the end of summer, and I gave that plan to somebody in the management team. They chose to include it in the annual budget, and they chose to go advocate for me on what I had done for them in the scorecard side. I never spoke a word trying to raise $1 million. Glenn Taylor heard about it from 7 other people, about how I had character, how I operated myself, how I put them ahead of me prior to anything else. That was what he heard. And he chose to fund it. I got a call saying that it had been funded and I was still at college. So I got my first $1 million off a piece of paper and off credibility for what I had done the prior 2 years. From there, I did what every 22-year-old does with $1 million. I blew it, and I blew it quick. I blew it, and I didn't even know that I had blown it. I had blown it so bad that I had $300,000 worth of liabilities that I had committed to that I was not accounting for. So I was broke before I knew I was broke. That time I had to go talk to Glenn. I wrote 7 pages. Submitted it. He wanted to talk to me this time. So I send him in. I've not met this guy, right? He walks in and he says, Andrew. He said, Andrew, asked me a couple questions about myself, as Glenn always does. Tell me about your background. Very pleasant. I'm like, well, it seems pretty good for a guy that I wrote in a paper that I blew $1 million. So that pleasantry starts, and then the meeting started, right? And then the meeting started, and he said, Andrew, 7 pages to say, need $1 million. We're not very good at producing it. We're not very good at selling it. But if you give me this $1 million, we're going to have an unbelievable marketing program, and that's going to save the day. 7 pages to say that. And I was like, yeah, that's about what I wrote. And he proceeded to ask me some other questions, and he looks me in the eye and he says, I always knew this day was coming the first time that I read your paper. And we talked about it. Should we tell you, or should we let you learn the lessons? And we chose to let you learn the lessons. So I expect that you will never forget about working capital, startup expenses, sales cycle, interest payments, and freight inefficiency. Expect you to never forget those, right? And I will tell you, I look at a lot of proposals. I never forget working capital, I never forget those things. And so that was the start of it. So I got the second $1 million. We started to solve our issues, and then I'm about out of money again for a second time in 12. Now this is 12 months later, And I have one final sales call before I'm going to hit send on asking for another $1 million to kind of get me through. It's to Fromm Family Pet Foods over in Mequon, Wisconsin. And Fromm Family, 5th generation pet food business, was $20 million in sales at the time that I went to go visit him. Tom Neiman is there. He books me for 2 hours, and I'm like, this is it. This is it, man. We are going to get to the bottom of this. He's going to buy from me. I'm so psyched. This is going to happen. I walk in there, and Tom proceeds to start talking to me about how chicken manure is the best fertilizer for growing tomatoes. And he is very passionate about his tomatoes because he makes sauce out of it for his pasta, for his pizza crust. His family just loves these tomatoes. He's got the best tomatoes in all of Wisconsin, according to him. And he spends an hour and 45 minutes talking to me about chicken manure. And I'm engaging because I ran a scorecard about chicken manure, oddly enough, and I can engage about it. So I talked to him about it. At hour and 45 minutes, he looks at his watch. He says, I have 15 minutes left. I have a hard stop. What do you need to tell me about eggs? I jam as much as I can in there about eggs. And no joke, 14:59, he looks at his watch, looks at me, says, you know how to get out of here? And I said, I do. And he gets up and walks away. And I am left sitting there, no answer, no nothing, no sale. Knowing that I have a 9-hour drive home to figure out how I'm going to hit send on a piece of paper, hit send on an email that's asking for another $1 million for the 3rd time. Tom sends me a message on Tuesday the following week. It's a PO. It's for 2 million pounds. It's for a higher price than what I had quoted him. It's higher volume than what I had quoted him. It's a higher price than what I had quoted him. And I call him up and I say, Tom, I think you made a mistake. He said, Andrew, I didn't make a mistake. He said, I figure that if you're going to sit there for an hour and 45 minutes and talk about what I want to talk about, knowing that you absolutely have to make this sale, me knowing that you're probably broke, or assuming that you're probably broke, if you're going to do that at that moment, you need to provide me that level of customer service going forward. And I was like, that's great. Yep, I get it, Tom. He says, but there's one thing that's not written in there that you're going to commit to. That's not written in there, but it's going to be between you and me. And I said, okay, I'm going to agree to whatever this is. I mean, parameters were pretty loose here at the moment in time. I was going to commit to what it was, most likely. And he says, you will never short me of egg. I am your #1 customer. I am the most important to you. I have made your business. You will make sure that I am always supplied the eggs that I need. And I'm thinking 5th generation business, no problem. Tom, you got it. Stamp, let's go. Because I think this business is going to be significantly bigger than that. Tom proceeds to grow that business 15 times over because the one thing I never contemplated in my business plan was that mothers were not going to buy from the major brands. They were going to buy from the family brands that they identified with that had a heritage story that helped them connect that motherlyhood to that love that they were trying to show to that animal. I never thought about that, but Tom's business exploded overnight, and I was left scrambling to try and keep up with it. He was a great partner. We worked out really well together, but that all took place. So now I've got money. I've got money, and it's like, well, what can I do with that money? I could have paid Glenn Taylor back, and I told him that. I said, I could pay you back, but I'm not gonna. I have been sitting in my apartment when I'm not working, reading dairy patents. And I think these 3 dairy patents should be applied to eggs. And I'm going to apply them to my egg business. It's going to transform the way that this egg business operates as far as being able to humanize pet food. And Glenn looks at me and says he doesn't understand it. He's not sure, but he says I seem awful confident about it and that I should go for it. So I spent $2 million on a piece of equipment that I had run 1 test on to know whether it worked. So I had an N of 1, which now we don't do that. But at that point in time, we did. So I bought a piece of equipment for $2 million. The manufacturer looks at it and says, I was like, well, what kind of guarantees are you going to give me on this? And they're like, they pointed a pump, and they're like, that pump is 150 horsepower. That's it. and the rest is on you. So I spent the $2 million. The piece of equipment's getting installed. It's gonna run, and I look at the technician, and I'm like, okay, like it's running on water, it seems to be doing well. Like, what's the chance that this is gonna work when we put egg on it? And the guy looks at me just deadpan, and he goes, 50-50. And I'm like, I honestly just gambled $2 million on a 50-50 thing, and it's not like I even like get to reward in that 50-50 right away. I still got to go sell this stuff. So very lucky. By a bunch of miracles in there, it worked. My competitors know the piece of equipment that I bought. They have not been able to get it to work in their facility ever. We bought a $25,000 piece of item that went in front of it that makes it work. So, right, sometimes you'd rather be lucky than good. But anyway, so that kind of puts me on the trajectory, and then so the pet food business goes from there. I fold in a couple other chicken business, leveraging the same technology, and grow it from there. I'm gonna jam those 7 years together and save you some time there. But it's ultimately ends up with, I get to a point in time where I look around and decide I'm not the best person to run this business anymore. And yeah, so I look around and I decide I'm not. Every time. That's an entrepreneur for you, though, right? I mean, like. So yeah, so I get there and I realize I'm not the best person to run this business anymore. We have scaled up in the domestic market. We've got a lot of market share. It needs to go internationally. And we're $300 million in sales and 675 team members, 13 locations around. Feel like I've tapped out as far as where my capacity is, as far as being the leader, and therefore, I recommend to my shareholders that the best path forward is to market the business. We proceed to market the business. This is public information. We sold to a German company, which is where the business should have gone. They took the technology, expanded it internationally from that standpoint, and now it operates in Asia and South America and Europe. It's taken to places I could have never taken it, and they paid us a significant amount of money to do that. So I stayed on for 6 months, transitioned it, and proudest things that happened in that, 50 people that worked for me became millionaires in that process. 5 people that worked for me throughout the years went on to be presidents, either within Simrise or within adjacent areas because of the work that we had done as a team, which is something that I pride myself in, and something that I pride myself in that we're doing again at Rembrandt now. So on the backside of that, Glenn and I look at each other. I take a little time, COVID's happening, and we look at each other and we say, do we want to be partners again? We decide that we want to be partners again. So over the last 5 years since that transaction, we've partnered on 8 businesses, with my primary one being Rembrandt Foods, which is where I was an intern and where I originally had the pet food idea. Rembrandt Foods was impacted significantly in 2022, March of 2022, so nearly 3 years ago. High path avian influenza was positive in our primary site, actually our sole site at that point in time, where our processing and birds were. And we woke up, I woke up after that and knew that the business model had to change. I told the set team that the individual that wrote the business model was a 33-year-old person that was FP&A at the time, and he said, this is how we're selling eggs, this is the wrong way to sell eggs, this is how eggs should be sold. And that's been the primary driver of what has changed our business philosophy. It was written by a 33-year-old guy in FP&A that knew the numbers, was a P&L person, and came in, and as a team, we weren't too proud in that moment. We listened and we adjusted. We observed, oriented, decided, and adjusted in that moment in time. So now building out that team, we have added a production site in Newberry, South Carolina, where we make the bites and omelets. So if you eat Trader Joe's bites or you eat omelets from Eggland's Best, thank you. We do the center of protein sandwiches that go in a pre-cooked category. We do ingredients that go into a lot of the foods, a lot of foods in the grocery store from that standpoint. We stand behind them. We have been helping them think through avian influenza. We've been very creative in the way that we try and manage the situation. We've been very creative in the way that we have helped them understand it. And we have seen the brands that we've supported and the co-pack relationships that we have prosper. They take share because we're helping them understand the risk in their supply chain and making sure that they're on shelf, right? A lot of people, you've seen a lot of empty shelves and those types of things. We're making sure that we're supporting on shelf time. And that's been a great reward from us from that standpoint. So that's, my story. I can, I told it, if you want to hear more detail associated with it, there's a podcast out there, Get Deep Podcast, that you can go listen to. But I want to go back and kind of talk through three things that I said in the beginning as far as decisions have descendants, sunbirding, and then the OODA loop side. So from a decisions have descendants standpoint side, I could have never made the choices that I made unless I started planning for that at a very young age. And I started planning that I was going to be debt-free coming out of college very young. I knew that if I was going to go to college, if I was going to get an education, I wanted to have the flexibility to take the right job on the backside of that, not the job I had to take to pay for the choices that I had made. So all of my decisions lined up to, focusing in on and delivering that I'm going to come out of college debt-free, and if I come out of college debt-free, that's going to give me a lot of flexibility. And I think above all, that was something that really allowed me early on. I lived in an apartment of $150 a month. I ate chicken and rice when I had to eat chicken and rice. I ate cereal when I had to eat cereal. Right? I was really focused in on managing my costs and not burning against my cash flow. And that gave me choices. Then there's a point in time where, the second great decision that I've made, and this is in any entrepreneur, whoever you pick, I'm talking about both partners in business and life partners. When I picked my partner in business, I didn't pick my partner in business. My partner in business and I got connected, and I only had to raise money once. What a gift, it was from that standpoint. But, more detail and thought went into my life partner. And, my wife does not always understand my entrepreneur spirit. She doesn't understand how I can sit there and want to take some risks when, there's a path of a lot less resistance. She came from North Dakota, went through a corporate job, very structured. We are completely complementary people on a bunch of different levels, but you know what? She supported me. We talked through how I thought, how I would engage, how we would work through this as a couple. And those conversations were so important. We picked truth over harmony in the start of our relationship. We made sure that we had the conversations that we needed to have. We made sure that we understood who each other were. And when I came to her and said, I'm going to borrow $5 million and I have no idea how I'm going to pay this back, but I promise it'll be good for our family long term. I promise that I'm committing to make this work. Not that it didn't make her uncomfortable, but in that moment when that decision needed to be made and that alignment needed to be had, we had it as a couple and there was no second guessing. We stroked the paperwork together, we moved on, and I was off doing what I needed to do to make sure I paid it down. Now, I'm not going to say that there weren't times that she was very nervous because I would come home and say, I'm not sure this works, or this isn't going right, or that isn't going right. But you know what she did? She propped me right back up, sent me back out there, gave me some really good positive reinforcement that I would figure it out, and off I went again. So 2 major life decisions set me up to be able to be in that position. The second thing that I talk about a lot in my story is sunbirding. And, you know, the good and the bad. There's a good and the bad to everything that you do sometimes a lot of things that you do as an entrepreneur. I struggle with being present and in the moment, but I excel at being able to observe and retain and think about where to apply. So we'll be walking along and, you know, I'll be observing all kinds of things, taking it in, thinking about it, logging it away, and in my mind trying to figure out the jigsaw puzzle of where should that be applied. Why was that great customer service? What was inefficient about their process? Why were they da-da-da-da-da-da? It's always this constant just bringing it in, diagnosing it, turning it back out, bring it in, diagnosing, turn it back out. So I walked through an orange juice manufacturer. I saw a depulping system, and that immediately clicked when I saw that little egg swoop system, that depulping system is what would be the solution for extracting out that egg white, and had complete confidence and conviction that that was going to be the solution that worked. When I read dairy patent after dairy patent after dairy patent, and I read about the microfiltration system and how they use microfiltration systems to separate lactose from milk proteins to be able to create protein concentrates, and then they used ion exchange to create protein isolates. I knew the composition of what that system looked like, what the properties of eggs were, and I lined those two things up and had complete courage and conviction when sample N of 1 worked, that was going to be the solution. When N worked, that was going to be the solution. I only had doubt when the tech told me it was a 50-50 deal. Outside of that, I had complete confidence, courage, and conviction that it was going to work. But I would, you know, in all of those instances, an entrepreneur, the source of original thought, there are few people that have full original thought. We're all just repurposing a lot of what we see, what we observe, what we identify. An entrepreneur is somebody that's able to piece it together and say, X, Y, and Z go together, and they produce a product that's better than what we had previously before. And then finally, the OODA loop side. So the OODA loop side is probably the #1 frustration of my U12 soccer team. I love coaching these boys. I've been with them since they were 9 years old. I love teaching them. Observe, orient, decide, act. Add on complete cycle. Observe, orient, decide, and act. You can always be observing. You can orient what somebody else is trying to do, decide, and be committed to it. And the secret sauce of Rembrandt Foods right now, and I don't think it's any secret because we're more than happy to advertise it and tell people, is we are phenomenal at observe, orient, decide, and act. And we are that way because we have driven P&L responsibility deep down in the organization. We operate like an ESOP, employee stock option program, or ownership program, sorry, without that as the restriction side, but we drive P&L responsibility, P&L understanding, so that way everybody's incented along the same lines, everybody's rowing in the same directions, and there is no penalty for observing, oriented. A lot of people communicate, not everybody decides, but we're getting people to decide and we're getting people to act. Because that way, little problems never become big problems. Our solutions about how we manage high-path AI is coming from the low-level groups that have been through it at our sites twice and understand how it originally came in our sites and fixing it, and having a vested interest in fixing it. And we've tied that vesting interest with, 1, compensation, but 2, if you have a vested interest in tying that and solving that, you will be given opportunity and security. You're given opportunity and security because that is the lifeblood at which our business operates. That's the differentiator that which we go with. Now, full transparency, I could get a call later today that a high path avian influenza is in our chicken houses, and that could happen. I know we would observe, orient, decide, and act our way out of it and do a really good job, but the facts of life is I can't reduce that probability to zero. It is an endemic situation. It's extremely, extremely challenging, but we've put the probability side in our favor, and that's how we use a lot of math to govern our business. The final thing on the OODA loop side, that we do is, we are never satisfied with saying that we are an egg company. We constantly challenge ourselves. Yes, we sell eggs. There's no doubt about it, we sell eggs. But we constantly challenge ourselves and study other businesses to make sure we understand there are a bunch of different business models out there. We understand other business models that are out there. We understand other industries that are out there. And we had somebody attend a meeting that was run by an external salesperson coming in and trying to sell to us. And his takeaway from that, he didn't buy from him. His takeaway from it was, this is the missing piece about how we should talk to our customers. This is the missing piece about how we should sell. So we're always observing, orienting, deciding, and acting. So you know what we did? We were like, that is a really good idea. That's a great sales tactic. Incorporate it, get it launched, get it out there, and that's been a core component of us. So, with that, I think, those are kind of my opening remarks side of the story, and I'm looking forward to questions and going from here.
Andrew, I've had the opportunity to listen to you speak a couple of times and watch you a few times, and I must say, I learned something from you every time I have the benefit and the pleasure of being around you, and I have no doubt our audience is as well, so thank you for that. At this time, we're going to do something a little bit different from the past. Our College of Business student executive team, which we've put to work here, consists of dedicated individuals with a strong and innovative maverick mindset. They collaborate with faculty and students to advocate for positive changes in the College of Business programs, benefiting both current and prospective students. Two of our team members will be assisting us in drawing additional insight and perspective from Andrew. Let us welcome Trina Ta and Colin Wendorsky to the stage, please. Trina and Colin had the opportunity to meet up with Andrew earlier in the day, so we're all friends here now, right?
You bet. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're good. We're good.
So you've got a seat. Trina, take it away.
Hello. Hi, everybody. My name is Trina Ta. I am a double major for International Business and Marketing. I am also a part of the Women in Business Club here on campus, as well as the Marketing Club.
Thank you. My name's Colin. I'm a quantitative finance major. I also have a minor in data analytics. This is my second year at MSU. I'm the president of the finance club, also on the SET team. And then I serve as a representative on the Student Athlete Association committee as well. I run track here. And I think Trina has a question.
Yeah. All right, Andrew. AI is transforming many industries, including food production. Has Rembrandt Foods started using any AI in part of its operations, such as production efficiency, supply chain management, or quality control? If so, what have been the biggest benefits and challenges of its implementation?
Yeah, I mean, so we're like everybody else. We're never on the cutting edge of trying to incorporate technology and machine learning side. We're probably a late stage adopter in a lot of things, but we're not immune, right? We have been converting a lot of our scorecarding over to business analytics. We've been using, we collect a significant amount of information, and we're trying to drive it back down into a couple, key scorecard items that we watch and that are really going to, help us understand that probability adjustment of high path avian influenza pressure in our areas, understand, our supply demand balance side, because customers are ordering ahead or what their order pattern should be and those types of things. So we're pretty infant in how we're using it today, but we're definitely implementing it and seeing like there's a lot of advantages to it. The two areas that I feel like it's really the most impactful right now is in our reporting, in our finance packet. It's getting very automated. And our weekly meetings getting very, very automated, where we used to have somebody, entering that information and kind of synthesizing, and now it's kind of synthesized. My only concern in the pattern that we have right now is, and this comes from me, right? This is how I learned the business, right? And I always get concerned. My kids, when I have to do 5th grade math, my son doesn't understand why I get to use the calculator and he does not get to use the calculator. And the principal point of that is I've learned how the underlying process works. I get concerned about losing the underlying process when we're aggregating so much information, having the synthesis and the analysis done, and it's an output. So that would be the one balance that I think we're trying to strike, is education versus ease.
Thank you. I do have a follow-up
Yeah,
question
for sure.
for you as well. So you mentioned some of the benefits and the challenges of AI implementation. How do you see Rembrandt Foods specifically overcoming these challenges you've identified, and what steps might you take to maximize the benefit and usefulness of AI within your company?
Yeah, I think from the challenge standpoint, we've still got to anchor in the fact that we're going to be a great learning and development and mentorship company, right? I think that's how we're getting comfort with the idea of how we don't lose those practical aspects of it. I think the real challenge that we're going to get into here is, how do we really start believing in the forecast models? Do we really start believing in some of the supply chain functions and the quality functions that we're tracking and reporting? Right now, we've still got human override in a lot of those areas, and it's when do we switch over and really, believe in the machine learning side and realize the cost savings, because right now we're kind of probably incurring double cost, right? And that's been, I think it's really hard to, we get a lot of things that say paybacks on these things, and, sometimes I think those are hard to do because we seem to run stuff in tandem so often, so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you.
You bet.
Colin here has a couple questions for you as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. And kind of going along those lines of innovation as well, we talked earlier, and we talked a little bit about the changing landscape within agriculture. So I kind of wanted to get to the point of, as customers kind of switch to demanding more sustainable practices, more regenerative practices, and there's always challenges within supply chain that come with that as well. How do you see the overall landscape of agriculture changing in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so we're a company that is focusing on, we're going to satisfy the consumer needs. So we let the consumer drive back to us what they want those practices to look like, whether it be conventional, cage-free, free range, what have you. We're letting them guide that back to us. I think the challenge that comes with that is, you've got now you might have one SKU that has 3 different source of eggs, and they all, so now you've multiplied your SKUs by a number. I think that's a challenge to overcome. I think the fractionation of the distribution of the supply chain is a challenge to overcome. But what I see us doing to solve that, in our internal sides, is observing businesses that have gone through it before. Dairy has gone through it more than we have. We've seen it in pork products, we've seen it in beef products and those types of things. So we're really spending a lot of time studying how those groups have kind of solved that, and how much does it really what is the consumer really after? We're people that stand behind the brands. We want to give the brands the best information that they have to make the right choices, that we get the velocity going through that we want to see, on the backside of that. So I think that's one component of it. But the component that I think the jury is still out, and we are probably for the first time in the real movement of regenerative, really movement of sustainability going to test it, is consumers willing to pay. it's been a marketing aspect up until this point in time, and now you're in a alignment where brands are really struggling with getting consumers to pay it, and you've got a lot of store brands coming in with the same value proposition as do we step it up and go to the next level? Is that just the table stakes side? I don't know, but we really see a crunched consumer right now. And, over the next 12 to 18 months, I think we're going to get a lot of feedback of, is it sticky or not? Is green energy really sticky? Is soybean oil and renewable diesel really sticky? Is sustainability practices in animal agriculture really sticky? I don't know, but we're here to service no matter what the outcome is.
That's awesome. Yeah, very interesting to hear. You mentioned and you kind of touched on the fact that there's a lot of consumer opinions, and those sales channels can kind of change as markets change and as opinions change. You specifically, and as a company, do you ever find it difficult, or what is your kind of strategy in handling? Obviously, you can't be in 6 different places at one time, and you might not be able to always meet every single customer need. So is there some way that you focus on what's going to be the best for your future growth and future endeavors?
Yeah. I think we've maintained we just go back to that OODA loop side, like observe, orient, decide, act. We are uber flexible, and I would say we observe, orient, and decide and act faster than anybody else in the space. So that's one thing that we've really been doing is when we get an indicator, because we're standing behind all the brands, we're not just watching one brand performance, we're watching multiple brands' performance. And we're able to see who's moving which way, and we develop an opinion internally, and then we set up our supply chain different based on what we think is coming in those type of situations and stuff like that. So I would say, it's really the winners in this space are going to maintain their flexibility and be able to be adaptive to what the customer wants and putting it on shelf at in the right time frame. I think that's what we bet on, I guess, is what I should say.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yep, for sure.
Well, I think we're going to open it up to the audience if people have questions. So I think there's a microphone somewhere.
Unless Andrew may have a question for either of you. Andrew, do you want to put to the test something that might be of interest from the students' perspective and their potential careers that are out in front of them?
Yeah, I mean, so what's the number one thing you took away from what I said, what I shared?
I think just being open-minded and making sure all your opportunities that you get, that you dive into. I mean, planning for your future is really important. As you spoke earlier, you had the mindset of graduating college with no debt. And as a college student that has debt, I would have honestly never thought about that. I mean, I'm working so hard towards my goal of being the first one in my family to go to college. And so with that, I hope any opportunity I get, I fully take.
Yep.
And I dive into it. So
Okay.
thank you for
Yep,
that.
You betcha.
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing is betting on yourself, but having a plan to back that up. In high school, I was super eager to, I knew I was going to be successful, and I always told that to people. I was like, I want to be successful, and I think I'm going to be successful. But I think sometimes I lost sight of all right, this is how you get there, and taking some of those finer details. So I think as I've grown and as I've looked to see what I want my career to turn into, and as I've started my own business and kind of ran that as well, learning to, like you're saying, kind of touch on that 10% that we talked about earlier that not everybody is looking at, and kind of plan out those minute details that are going to be the difference maker.
Yeah, sure. I'll share. I mean, I've had the pleasure of spending. I mean, if you guys all know you're here in the room, but I mean, I've had the pleasure of spending it with these students today, and I mean, I'm really, really encouraged by the how well spoken they are, how great the questions have been. And there's one thing that stuck out to me, and I don't think he's here, and you guys might have to help me, but it's Reese, and then is it Maya?
Yep.
Reese and Maya. Reese and Maya have started personal finance consultation for students that are here and educating. They're taking a skill that they have and they're learning in class, and they're teaching them, personal financial responsibility. You have no idea how encouraging that was for me to hear. That's been a cornerstone for my wife and I. That's a cornerstone that we want for our kids. And I just got to say, I was really, really happy to hear that, one, there's students engaging, two, that it is a conversation, and three, that it's started by students. Right? So I just thought that was the best thing that I took away from today.
Yeah, it's awesome to see. I mean, obviously everything's changing, and in the new innovation center, it's given so many tools to people that have ideas and faculty that have ideas to continue to grow. So.
Good.
Thank you for that exchange. That was wonderful. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Trina. Thank you, Colin. So we have Rebecca with our set team up there with a microphone, and might somebody have a question for Andrew that you'd like to put? If you'd raise your hand, and she'll bring you the mic. Thank you, Rebecca.
Sam Ziegler with Green Team. Thanks, Andrew, for being here.
You bet.
Can you talk about, so ag business is changing really fast, or businesses related to food and ag are changing really fast related to customers. How can campus and the new School of Ag and those things make sure that they are able to reflect on that changing pace to have the next talent coming into your business or other ag businesses that are pushing them to that next level?
Yeah, that's great. That's a great question. I think, once again, here's something that I took away from from today. I have as a leader in this area and a leader in a food and ag, I've got a responsibility to make sure we're getting down here on campus, we're using the gateway appropriately, because the students are prepped, right? I mean, the questions that I got today were really good. They just there needs to be more on-campus touch time from people like me, I think, to be able to educate them about what is happening in food and ag, why is it attractive, what are all the components that go into it, right? I don't think there were a lot of people in that room today that thought ag was necessarily an option. So I think second thing that I took away from today is, my team and I need to park ourselves over there in the gateway, from time to time, and be there and be able. It's a wonderful space for interaction. It's a wonderful space for commingling, collaboration, but that's going to be the way that we do it, because they're hungry. I mean, they showed up, and they showed up with questions, and they showed up ready to learn, and I would hope that I think from today that there were probably a lot of eyes that were opened up to say, oh my gosh, yeah, if I want to stay in this area, food and ag does provide some unique opportunities that maybe I didn't really think about before.
Thank you. If you've got a question over, looks like maybe over here, if you put your hand up, Rebecca will get you the microphone, and thank you in advance for your question.
Good afternoon. I'm Cheryl Trams-Chapman. I am one of the faculty members in the College of Business.
Okay.
And we talk frequently about uncertainty. We talk about resilience. I have two takeaways, and then I have a question for
Sure.
you.
Yep.
My takeaways are, first, you're someone who sees opportunity, and that's a mindset that we try to instill in our students here,
Yep.
seeing opportunity. My second takeaway was you consistently talk about what many of us in classroom talk about, the devil's in the details, understanding the P&L, understanding your business, being able to drill down and understand everything.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about what you would want as a takeaway if you were a student today? We're going into very uncertain times. We've got bird flu. If you're going into ag, what are the pieces that you would want students to come out with that would help them see opportunity and deal with things resiliently?
Yeah, that's a multi-level question there, right? I think the thing that I would want them to come out with is this is a great time to be curious. When things are uncertain, it's a great time to be curious. And it's a great time to ask questions. And there's no better way to, learn in uncertain times and probably hear a bunch of different opinions, but by asking questions and getting a diversity of thought and then taking that, once again, observe, orient, decide, act, right? You're observing, you're orienting, and what's happening, you're deciding act. But I mean, I think this is a great time. In uncertain times, this is when you don't go back and clam up. You actually put yourself out there in uncomfortable situations, ask questions, understand how people are thinking about it, how are they talking about it, how are they navigating through it, because a couple things. You'll probably find that you're not alone, right, in the feelings that you have, and it's great. Strength in numbers, makes you feel a whole heck of a lot better. That's why I have the team around me that I have, is strength in numbers makes me feel a whole lot better in a lot of days when it's really uncertain. Two, I think you're going to be able to, it's once again, it's good to hear contrarian thoughts. It's good to hear people talk about downside risk. It's good for someone to say, oh, this is great. When everybody else is shrinking up, this is great, right? You need to balance that of this guy's got great, this guy sees a bunch of risk, where do I fall on that? Because I think there's no better time to get and understand who you are and where you fall on that scale. Because the worst thing that you can do in uncertain times is, put yourself into an even more, a situation that you're not willing to see through. And if you're not willing to see it through, you'll join the other 95% of entrepreneurs that fail because they quit, not because they had a bad idea, right? So I would say in uncertain times, be curious, ask questions, do your exploration, be able to find out who you are, and that'll be able to put you in a prepared situation that you make a decision and you're confident, and then stepping on that front foot confidence, is what'll help drive you forward. Did that help? Okay, you betcha, good.
Somebody else got a question for Andrew here? If you'd put your hand up and Rebecca will find you. Coming down, another one for you, Andrew.
Zach Ruger, Marketing Club President. I was curious, as someone who aspires to be a CEO and a business owner one day, what do you think are the key traits that every CEO should possess that maybe some don't?
No, I'm not the person to ask. I mean, I'm not a great person to ask that. I mean, there are much better CEOs than me. Right? I mean, I'm an entrepreneur. I fired myself, right? I fired myself as CEO, right? So I don't know that I would say that I'm a prototypical CEO, but I will tell you things that have helped me out tremendously over the years. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of an Effective Leader. I think that's a timeless book that's out there that you can learn and understand that. I think is really good. I think the getting comfortable with, to get a leadership position with me, I hire people that are contrarian to who I am. My CFO's here. He and I are complementary. We're not the same people. When we have an interaction report, there is areas that we have to understand, but I'm comfortable hiring people that are not the same as me, don't look like me, don't act like me, don't think like me. Right, but complement me to make sure that I understand where my shortfalls are and go from there. And I think, the third and last thing that I would say is I never set out, I mean, I let the path, my path was really early. My path was really early. And I wouldn't say that's the best for everything, right? I've had habits that I've had to break because I was in a leadership position, I was uncomfortable, I was in uncertain times, and I went back to what my nature was versus what was actually right. So I would say the third thing is you can have a plan and you can have an aspiration, and those are great, but let the natural process go through from that standpoint. Because having really good habits is way better than getting the position, aspiring to the title, and then having to correct things that maybe aren't so advantageous for the position. Is that helpful? Yeah. Okay, good.
question to Andrew.
Yeah,
There
for
we
sure.
go.
Yeah.
Rebecca J with the SET team. So you're talking about all of these different people that you work with, learn from, all of these things. How do you go about finding these really good people that aren't like you to work with, whether it be a business partner, somebody you hire to work for you or work with you, a mentor, all of those kinds of things?
Yeah. You know, I've been really, really fortunate. So when I started the business, right, the people that were there when I started the business were the people that were there at the end of the business with me in the pet food business, and I supplemented and added them in a little bit, you know, from that standpoint. But I mean, most of the time, the people that are in the business have been the people that I've worked with, and we've focused in on our personality profiles, what our interaction report looks like, how are we going to, what are decision rights, how do we complement each other, those types of things. That's where we really focused in on. I think that's number one, far and away, what has made me successful on the people side. The second thing is, if you talk to me today, there is very likely that I wrote down a note when I had a moment, and I now have a note about you somewhere, and I will anchor back in that, and who knows when it'll come up, but it'll come up in my mind. I will call you, and I will say, hey, I've been thinking about you. This is what I've got something. We should get together and we should talk. Most of the time, I pull from my network of people that I have met, interacted with, had an exchange with, thought they made an interesting comment, went on it and picked on it and pulled before. From that standpoint. So if we talk today, I'm sorry, I probably, it doesn't feel invasive or not, but I probably made a note about you. And you never know. I may reach back out at some point in time, but I'm always, once again, observe-orienting, in those moments, trying to just see, like, that was interesting. That person might compliment us here.
We have time for one more if we'd like. The gentleman here with the hand up. Thank you, Rebecca.
Andrew Bittner from Taylor Corp. So, Andrew, I'm curious. You talked a bit about breaking bad habits, and I have to imagine back in 2019 when you made the decision to fire yourself, as you put it, is that had to be a key inflection point in your growth and journey as a leader.
Yep.
And you said there was this key decision point of, okay, do I want to do this again? And so did you find that moving into this next chapter of your career that there were fundamentally different ways in which you approached not just business, but leadership and your oversight and guidance of the organizations and businesses you've been involved in as compared to the first chapter?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, Andrew and I know each other. Really loaded question, but anyway, no, it's really good. He knows the answer. But I mean, it's really, yes. I mean, I bite to it, the apple, very, very different, right, versus the first. I'm doing it from a position of I've seen a lot of these things, one time before not, and everybody asks, well, what would you go back and adjust? And I'm not going to go through them here, but there's 3 fundamental things that I would go back and adjust in my journey on the pet food side. And I think to date I've done a pretty good job of incorporating them in and adjusting it this time around. If you knew me when high-path avian influenza was happening in 2015 versus how I handle it in 2025, 2 fundamentally different people. I have my head wrapped around it. I have a team wrapped around it. I think there's, just fundamentally different. I was on edge. I couldn't sleep. A lot of impactful things now, right? I'm confident in the way, if something were to happen, how we would handle it. Confidence in it. I know how it would work. And those types of things. So, definitely bite 2, round 2, making decisions from a point of confidence. Still things to work on, right? So, I mean, probably when there's 3.0, it'll be even better, right? And maybe, Lord willing, I get a 4.0, at some point in time down the future. But, But yeah, I think you got to be, if you're going to be a leader and you're going to stick your head in the sand on feedback, and you're not going to ask for 360s, and you're not going to ask for executive coaching, and you're going to say, I know this, you know, I mean, if it works for you, great. That doesn't work for me, right? I need those feedback cycles. I need those adjustment points. I'm not too proud because I want to win. I don't necessarily want to, you know, it doesn't mean that it has to be done my way.
And let's fit him in. I think Andrew will accommodate that in a timely way. Thank you.
Thanks again for coming in. My name is Tyler. I'm just a student that's management, minor in entrepreneurship. So, quick question for you. What's kept you grounded in the success? Not getting too like, oh my gosh, it's working out, I'm doing great. And then in the lows, what's kept you going? Like you said, couldn't sleep, this and that. I know you mentioned your wife and family being a big motivator. What else has got you through?
Oh, well, I mean, my wife is, I mean, when I say my wife, like when I come home and she, you know, props me back up and gets me pumped back up and sends me back out the next day. Like, I mean, you don't know my wife, but she's really, really good at that. You know, so I would say two things have been fundamental. I know I have a faith that this is not just me. You know, right? I know that there are external things that I believe in and a faith that I follow in. You know, I have great courage and conviction associated with that, and it influences me on a regular basis. And two, I've set myself on a schedule. I've learned that I need to be on a schedule. I need to work in 4-hour blocks. I need a break to go get oxygen in my lungs. I come back, I pound through another 4-hour block. And, you know, and finally, the third thing is my personal scorecard is different. I'm trying to do what my dad did. I try and spend as much time with my son and daughter and my two boys and my daughter. I don't, you know, it looks different than what it did with my dad. But I'm trying to be there, be a dad, you know, coach them through a number of different things. The biggest challenge is my daughter is a dancer, and I have zero understanding about how I can contribute to dancing, and I'm at moments in time ashamed that I pay for her to shake her booty like that, you know, right? But it is what it is, so.
All right, did you say there was one more? I think we're done. Okay, well, Andrew, we set a high bar challenging you to integrate food entrepreneurship with leadership and growth and success. And I would just like to say, you knocked it out of the park. Oh. I think the audience was so great. And I think you knocked it out of the pickleball court too.
Oh, okay.
All right. So, yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
So on behalf of Trina and Colin, and with special thanks again to Richard and Mary Schmitz for making this presentation possible. Thank you for your support, President Inch, Dean Bach, Dr. Budge for joining us. I think we've got a great future ahead with this type of energy, with this type of support. I'd also like to thank Ms. Ashley Nitz with the marketing team. Without her support, this would not have also been possible. So if we could give Ashley and her team a great round of applause. She won't come out. And with that, that concludes our presentation. So thank you for attending. Have a good afternoon, and go Mavs!
There you go. You betcha. Good job, guys. Yeah, good job. You betcha. Absolutely. Yep. Good job. Yep. Oh, good. Thank you. Is there what you wanted? What you wanted? Oh no! Oh no! I was. Okay. Okay. Good.